Hello, everybody. You're watching Backyard Politics, and I'm your hostess, Nikki. So there's been a lot of voter suppression, election fraud. This guy, Josh Reef, posted South Carolina, Biden gained 8.3% over exit polls. Massachusetts, Biden gained 15.7% over exit polls. Texas, Sanders lost 11.8% under exit polls. UN considers these numbers suspect for election fraud. And then he gives a source, which is tdmsresearch.com. Exit polls are polls of people who have literally just voted. It should not be a discrepancy of 8.3, 15.7, 11.8. That's ridiculous. This is another form of voter suppression on Bernie Sanders' heavy favorable areas. Polls are officially closed in Michigan, but the East Lansing City Clerk's office is still packed with students who have been waiting on average 3 hours to vote. This is what the line currently looks like. By the way, most of these people are voting for Bernie Sanders. They just have to stand there and wait for hours. There was a picture of a guy who was going and picking up pizzas for people that were students that were waiting in line. I think it was in California. I know they did that in California. We still don't have California's numbers. Graham Elwood says, if Russia shut down 750 polling sites to rig a primary, people would go nuts. But when the DNC does it, it's just a glitch. And then he posted an article from Salon.com. Joe Biden wins Texas on night marred by long wait times for voters. Anyway, they can suppress the young people's vote. So Tulsi Gabbard came out with a Securing America's Elections Act, and I wanted you all to hear about this.
The greatest threat to our democracy right now is the fact that we have 14 states in our country that have no paper ballots. They have no record of the votes that are cast through electronic systems. You look at the vulnerabilities that we have and how increasingly easier and easier it's getting to hack into these systems. It wouldn't take much for a bad actor, whether it be another country or some individual rogue person, to go and hack into these systems, manipulate the numbers of votes that are cast for one candidate or another, and completely change the outcome of the election. I've introduced legislation called the Securing America's Elections Act that provides resources to states to either have paper ballots, or if you're using an electronic system, to have a voter verified paper backup of every vote that's cast. So if there are any concerns about manipulation in our elections, manipulating our votes that are cast, that there is a paper trail to go back and audit and make sure that, bottom line, our voices and our votes are counted. If we do not do this, and if we don't do this now, then we are at risk of people losing faith in our democracy as a whole. If we don't have faith that our votes that we go out and cast on election day are counted and heard, then people won't turn out to actually vote at all.
Which might be what is happening right now. The DNC is definitely fucking with the votes. Not to mention, a 14-year-old, I believe in Vegas, they have these like conventions to see like who can hack into stuff, and I believe it was a 14-year-old girl, if I'm remembering correctly, who could hack into our voting system within a matter of minutes. If that's possible, just think of what else is possible. I mean, fucking A. Our voices aren't being heard. Bernie should be leading. He should be dominating. And wouldn't it be nice if we could have Tulsi on the debate stage? Or even a debate, for that matter? She's a veteran. She's a woman of color. She's the only one calling out the voter fraud. I mean, I love Bernie Sanders. I love his policies. I love the movement. But he needs to stand up and defend Tulsi first and foremost for not being allowed to be on the debate stage. But secondly, he needs to call out the DNC that is royally fucking him and all of his supporters right now. So in my last video, I talked about how there's a survey going around to voters in Oregon, and I don't know if it's shady. I've only done a little bit of looking into it, but I would recommend do not fill any of this stuff out, because this is how they suppress the vote. This is how one of the ways they suppress the vote in 2016 is they found out who you want to vote for, and then they purged your vote. So it makes it sound like, well, let me go back here. Dear resident, we are an independent public opinion research company that has been hired to conduct a public opinion survey to obtain feedback on some key issues facing Oregon. Some key issues, okay? Nowhere in here does it say anything about politicians or anything like that. So you go into the actual survey, which I'm not going to submit. It says, first, here's some responsibilities of the Oregon Secretary of State. Please indicate blah, blah, blah. Okay? Cool. Nothing shady there, right? We'll just do don't know so that lets me go to the next one. 1 second. Next, which of the following do you think is most important responsibility of Secretary of State? Nothing fishy here. Okay. This is another one that's fine. Whatever. Would you strongly support or oppose stuff? Let's see. I'm trying to make a point, but I got to get to that spot first because it won't let me just jump there. Next question has to do with the candidates for Secretary of State. This is where I get a little icked out. Here are descriptions of 2 hypothetical Democratic candidates for Secretary of State. Please indicate which you would prefer. A candidate will focus on efficiently and effectively carrying out the responsibilities of the Secretary of State's office. A candidate who shares values, blah, 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 like education. So which one's more important to you? Next, you'll read a bit more about a few of the Democratic candidates for the Oregon Secretary of State. I'm just going to click don't know because, again, I'm just trying to get to that part that I found a little weird. So it's talking about each person individually and what they stand for, okay? So why, here's a person running for state senator, Southeast Portland, and then it gives the areas. This is what they're for. Based on the description, are you very favorable, somewhat unfavorable, or very unfavorable of this person? Why do they need to know this at all? And then this is what I found very strange. Now that you've learned more about the election for Oregon Secretary of State, for whom would you vote for if these candidates are these people? Why do you need to know that? Aren't you going to find out when we vote? I didn't go any further than this because this is where it started to raise alarm bells, and I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to fucking do that because I'm voting for some progressives and I want my vote to count. So, again, I'm not for sure. I haven't looked into this company too much, but I would highly recommend do not fill any of this shit out at all. It might seem legitimate, but you never know. So, yeah, I guess that's it here. Well, actually, there's one last point. Let me see. So everybody likes to talk about, oh, how are we going to pay for Medicare for all? It's, nobody's going to want to switch. Well, Medicare for all has support among Democratic primary voters in every state where we have exit polls so far this year. Every single state. And that's according to NBC News. Uh-oh. So, that being said, be careful of the information that you let out into the world. Report any voter suppression, voter fraud that you might see. Even if you're not for sure, spread the word about it because you never know. And it always tilts in the favor of the establishment. So, until next time, Medicare be with you. Don't give up.